A heartless millionaire discards a blind colt, but a young girl's kindness turns everything around. What happens next will leave you speechless. In the heart of sprawling countryside, with endless rolling hills and miles of wooden fences, stood the estate of William Royce. It was a place where the finest thoroughbreds grazed freely under the sun and retired to stables fit for royalty at night. William's name was synonymous with success in the world of competitive horse racing. His horses were champions, revered as living legends. For William, life was a balance sheet. Assets had value. Liabilities were discarded. As dawn painted the horizon in hues of amber, a stable hand burst into William's study. "Mr. Royce, Aurora's going into labor," he blurted, his voice tinged with urgency. William set down his pen, adjusted the Windsor knot of his tie with practiced precision, and rose from his mahogany desk. His tailored suit and polished demeanor radiated authority, the very picture of a man in control. Grabbing his intricately carved cane, a symbol more of status than necessity, he strode toward the stables. "This better go smoothly," he remarked, his tone sharp with an unspoken warning. Aurora, a magnificent mare with a gleaming chestnut coat, occupied the largest and most luxurious stall on the property. She was William's pride, a product of an impeccable bloodline whose offspring had dominated racetracks across the nation. He had invested heavily in her, and his expectations for this foal were sky-high. Inside the stable, a team of veterinarians worked diligently. Aurora strained, her muscles trembling with exertion. William loomed in the doorway, his keen eyes missing nothing. "How much longer?" he asked, breaking the tension. "Not long now, Mr. Royce," one of the veterinarians assured him. "Everything is progressing well." Moments later, a feeble whinny broke the silence. The foal had arrived. The lead veterinarian gently cradled the newborn, wiping it clean as it instinctively attempted to move. William stepped forward, anticipation etched across his features. "It's a colt," announced the veterinarian with a hint of a smile. "Strong build, excellent proportions." William allowed himself a rare exhale of satisfaction, yet his relief was fleeting. A murmur from one of the assistants drew the lead veterinarian's attention. Concern darkened his expression as he examined the colt more closely. "What is it?" William demanded, his impatience cutting through the air like a whip. The veterinarian straightened, his discomfort evident. "Mr. Royce, there's an issue." "Speak plainly," William snapped, his voice a mix of irritation and foreboding. The veterinarian hesitated before delivering the blow. "The colt appears to be blind. His eyes don't respond to light, and his movements suggest a lack of visual orientation. It's a permanent condition." The stable fell silent. William stood frozen, his gaze locked on the fragile colt, struggling to find its footing. Thin legs wobbled as the animal pushed itself upright, a testament to its innate determination. "Blind?" William echoed, his voice laced with disbelief, as if the word itself were beneath him. "Yes, sir," the veterinarian confirmed cautiously. "While he won't be able to race or perform like others, he could still live a peaceful life with the right care." William's expression hardened, his calculating demeanor swiftly overtaking any fleeting sentiment. "A horse that can't compete is worthless," he declared coldly. "I won't waste resources on something with no future." "Mr. Royce, perhaps," the veterinarian began, but William cut him off with a dismissive wave. "I've made my decision. Remove that animal from my property," he ordered, his tone leaving no room for debate. The colt's faint whimper echoed in the stillness, but William had already turned away, his focus shifting back to the ledger of his ambitions. "I don't want to see it again." The veterinary team and stable hands exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared challenge the millionaire's decision. Not long after, A young, stable hand, whose kind heart contrasted sharply with his employer's coldness, was tasked with carrying out the order. He carefully placed the foal in a wagon, its fragile frame barely taking up space, and set out for a secluded spot on the edge of a dense forest. The road stretched long ahead, and the foal, blissfully unaware of its grim fate, lay quietly in the wagon bed, letting out the occasional soft whinny. When they reached the destination, the caretaker stopped the wagon and gently lifted the foal onto the grass. He crouched beside it, his hand brushing over the creature's soft, moon-white coat. "I'm sorry, little one," he whispered, his voice heavy with regret. "I wish I could do more for you." Left alone, the foal stumbled, disoriented in its dark and silent world. Separated from its mother with no understanding of why, it released faint whinnies, searching for a response that would never come. The forest winds carried a chill, and the foal curled into itself on the cold ground, trembling. Yet somewhere deep inside, a flicker of survival began to burn, a spark it didn't yet know how to embrace. That night, under a canopy of countless stars, the forest seemed both vast and foreboding. Not far from the woods, in a modest cabin, 12-year-old Lily Garcia was finishing the dinner dishes alongside her mother. The pair had leaned on each other ever since Lily's father had passed away a few years earlier. Life wasn't easy, but together they made it work. As Lily dried the last plate, her ears perked up at an unfamiliar sound drifting through the night air. She froze, her hand mid-motion, listening intently. "Mum, did you hear that?" she asked, turning toward her mother, who seemed lost in her own thoughts. "Hear what?" her mother replied, distracted. "A horse. I swear I heard a horse neighing." Her mother frowned and glanced out the window toward the forest, which loomed dark and shadowy under the moonlight. "That's unlikely, Lily. The horses from Royce's ranch don't roam this far. It's probably just some animal from the woods." But Lily wasn't so sure. She had always felt a special connection with animals, spending hours tending to their chickens and the aging family dog. Many times her mother had caught her nursing injured birds or lost forest creatures back to health. "I don't think it's just any animal," Lily insisted. It sounded scared. Before her mother could argue, Lily grabbed an old flashlight from the shelf by the door and bolted outside. "Lily, get back here," her mother called, panic in her voice. "It's late and it's dangerous out there." But Lily was already halfway down the path leading to the woods, her determination pushing her forward. The faint sound of the whinny guided her steps as the dense darkness of the forest seemed to close in around her. Each stride was careful, avoiding dry branches and fallen leaves as her flashlight cut a narrow beam through the gloom. "Where are you?" she whispered, breathless but unwavering. The whinny came again, clearer this time. With renewed urgency, Lily quickened her pace until the light from her flashlight landed on a small figure lying on the forest floor. Her heart raced as she approached. There, in the shadows, lay a foal, its white coat glowing faintly in the moonlight. It made no attempt to flee, lifting its head weakly as she knelt beside it. "Oh no," she murmured, her voice trembling with concern. "What are you doing out here, little guy? You're all alone." As she carefully examined the foal, Lily noticed something unusual about its eyes. They were pale grey, unresponsive to the beam of her flashlight. "Are you blind?" she asked softly, though she knew the foal couldn't answer. Her chest tightened at the thought of how vulnerable it was, abandoned and defenseless in such a harsh environment. The foal let out a faint whinny, as if trying to communicate. Lily's heart broke further. "Don't worry," she said, her voice firm with resolve. I'm not leaving you here. She stroked its back, noticing how frail it felt. I'll take you home. We'll figure this out. She looked around, hoping for a way to help the foal stand. Gently pulling at its halter, she tried to coax it into walking, but its legs trembled, too weak to carry its weight. After several unsuccessful attempts, she knelt beside it again. Stay here, okay? I'll be back, she promised. The foal lowered its head, almost as if it understood. Lily sprinted back to the cabin, her mind racing as fast as her feet. When she burst through the door, her mother was standing there, her face a mix of relief and frustration. Lily, where have you been? You know how dangerous it is out there at night. Mum, I found a foal, Lily blurted, barely pausing for breath. It's blind, and I think someone abandoned it in the forest. We have to help it. Her mother's eyebrows shot up in disbelief. A foal? In the woods? Are you sure? Yes, Mum. It's so weak it can't even walk on its own. Please, we have to go get it. Her mother sighed, already knowing there would be no convincing Lily otherwise. On a chilly autumn afternoon, Emily grabbed an old quilt and followed her daughter, Mia, to the spot where she had found the abandoned foal. When they arrived, the little horse was still lying exactly where Mia had left him. The girl ran over, dropping to her knees to stroke his fragile frame. I told you I'd come back, she whispered, her smile radiant with reassurance. Together, they carefully wrapped the foal in the quilt and managed to lift him. The trek home was slow and exhausting, but Mia didn't utter a single complaint. Her determination burned brighter than the ache in her arms. She knew deep in her heart that saving this foal was the right thing to do. When they finally reached their modest backyard, they prepared a makeshift bed of hay and old blankets where the foal could rest. Mia fetched a bucket of water and improvised a bottle with warm milk from the kitchen. Here you go, little guy. Drink up. You need your strength, she murmured, holding the bottle steady as the foal struggled to sip. With every small swallow, his frailty seemed to recede, replaced by a flicker of vitality. Mia's eyes sparkled with hope. Mum, I think this is meant to be, she said, gently stroking the foal's neck. He came to us for a reason. We're going to take care of him, and I'll do whatever it takes to help him thrive. Emily didn't answer right away. She studied her daughter's determined gaze and realized there was no turning back. That night, as the foal settled into his new safe haven, Mia stayed by his side, whispering softly about the brighter days ahead. Though she didn't yet know how, she was certain this tiny horse would change their lives forever. Days turned into weeks, and weeks stretched into months. From the night Mia rescued the foal, her life transformed. The yard behind their humble home became a sanctuary for the blind horse, whom she lovingly named Blaze. The name wasn't just a symbol of hope. It was a reminder that, even without sight, his spirit burned fiercely. Under Mia's devoted care, Blaze thrived. Every morning she woke up early to clean his small pen and ensure he had plenty of food. Despite the challenges, Mia faced every obstacle with a smile, driven by the unique bond she shared with Blaze. His blindness didn't hold him back from learning to trust her completely. Mia became his eyes, guiding him with her voice and gentle touch. Using small bells tied to her wrist and a steady tone, Mia taught Blaze to follow her without hesitation. "Good job, Blaze. Let's practice walking in a straight line today," she encouraged, holding a lead rope as the foal tentatively followed. Every small step forward felt like a monumental victory. Despite his condition, Blaze demonstrated remarkable intelligence and determination. His initial clumsy movements soon gave way to confident strides as he placed his full trust in Mia's guidance. Not everyone in their small town appreciated Mia's efforts. Neighbors whispered behind her back, and some even voiced their skepticism outright. "You're wasting your time, kid," one man scoffed at the local farmer's market. "That horse will never amount to anything. You should sell him while you still can." Mia lifted her chin, her voice unwavering. "He's not worthless. He just needs a chance." Her words weren't just a defense. They were a promise. She refused to let anyone diminish Blaze's potential. One day, as they practiced in the yard, something extraordinary happened. Blaze, who had been cautiously following Mia, suddenly stopped in his tracks. His ears twitched, alert to something Mia couldn't perceive. She turned to him, puzzled. "What is it, Blaze? Is something wrong?" Without warning, the foal began to trot on his own, guided only by the faint jingling of Mia's bells. She watched in awe as Blaze navigated the space with a newfound confidence, moving as though he had finally discovered a way to overcome his blindness. "You did it, Blaze! You did it on your own!" Mia cried, rushing to embrace him. Her joy was palpable as she wrapped her arms around the horse, their connection stronger than ever. That small triumph ignited an idea that had been forming in Mia's mind for weeks. Though she knew it wouldn't be easy, she decided to train Blaze for something greater. This was only the beginning of their incredible journey. Lucia had always been intrigued by local equestrian competitions. While she'd never heard of a blind horse competing, she was certain that her horse, Bright, had the potential to defy expectations. "We'll show them what we're capable of," she said one evening while brushing the young horse's coat. "It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You and I can do this." Determined, Lucia began to teach herself. She would observe training sessions from a distance at William Royce's prestigious estate, careful not to get too close. Quietly, she picked up on techniques used to prepare champion horses and adapted them to fit Bright's needs. Using sounds, specific words, and physical guidance, she created her own methods. Their training sessions were grueling and stretched on for hours, but the bond between Lucia and Bright grew stronger with each passing day. The blind colt learned to respond to her commands with remarkable precision, turning, halting, and trotting in perfect circles. Bright wasn't just a project to Lucia. He was her companion, her responsibility, and her family. Meanwhile, at the opulent Royce estate, William remained engrossed in his prized horses, oblivious to the progress of the blind colt he had cast aside. To him, Bright was nothing more than a wasted investment, a misstep forgotten. But Lucia saw what no one else did, the relentless determination of a champion. Though the path ahead was full of obstacles, she was undeterred. Slowly, her hard work began to yield results. In their humble backyard, the training advanced. Bright started displaying a confidence and drive that even Lucia hadn't anticipated. One warm afternoon, as Lucia adjusted the makeshift ropes she used to help Bright practice small jumps, her mother approached, worry etched across her face. "Lucia, can we talk?" her mother asked, folding her arms. Lucia, sweat dripping from her brow, set down the rope and turned to her. "What's wrong, Mom?" "I've been hearing things," her mother began hesitantly. "People in town think you're wasting your time with this horse. They say you should focus on school or helping more around the house." The words stung, but Lucia refused to let them crush her resolve. She glanced at Bright, standing a few feet away, calm yet alert, and felt a surge of determination. "Mum, I know people don't get it," she said. "But Bright isn't just a horse. He's special, and I believe we can achieve something amazing together." Her mother sighed, sensing the unshakable conviction in her daughter's voice. She had witnessed Lucia's relentless efforts since the day Bright came into their lives. Despite her initial doubts, she couldn't deny the maturity and strength her daughter had shown. "Fine," her mother said at last, "but promise me you'll keep up with your other responsibilities." "I promise," Lucia replied with a grateful smile. With her mother's renewed support, Lucia doubled down on her efforts. However, their small backyard soon became inadequate for Bright's growing skills. Searching for more space, Lucia stumbled upon an open field near the river, a perfect training ground, far from the judgmental eyes of the townspeople. For weeks, Lucia and Bright trained tirelessly in that secluded spot. She crafted simple obstacles from branches and logs, teaching him to jump. "Come on, Bright! You've got this. Trust me," she encouraged as he approached each challenge. At first, the jumps were low, just inches off the ground. But as Bright gained strength and confidence, the hurdles grew taller. Every successful leap was met with enthusiastic praise, pats and slices of apple as rewards. "I knew you could do it, champ," she whispered, hugging him tightly after an especially clean jump. One afternoon, as they trained in the field, the rumble of an engine broke the tranquility. Lucia looked up to see a sleek black SUV pulling up along the dirt road. Out stepped a broad-shouldered man dressed in expensive clothes, followed by a younger man with a camera. She recognized the imposing figure immediately. William Royce. Though they had never met, his reputation as a powerful, arrogant man who looked down on others preceded him. William's gaze swept over the scene with interest. He had heard whispers about a girl training a blind horse, something he initially dismissed. But the curiosity of someone gaining attention in his domain of expertise had lured him here. "Well, what do we have here?" William said mockingly, striding toward her. Lucia's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. Straightening her posture, she answered confidently, "I'm training my horse." He raised an eyebrow, glancing at Bright, who stood quietly at her side. That's your blind horse? What on earth do you think you're going to achieve with something like that? Horses need to see to compete. You're wasting your time, girl." Lucia clenched her fists, struggling to stay calm. "Bright is far more capable than you realize," she replied firmly, "and I don't need your approval to prove it." For a brief moment, William appeared taken aback by her boldness, but his smug demeanor quickly returned. Unfazed, Lucia turned her focus back to Bright, silently vowing to show William and the rest of the world just how wrong they were. "Good luck, kid, but don't get your hopes up. Horses like that never make it far." With those words, the man turned back to his truck, leaving Emma standing there with a mix of frustration and a renewed sense of determination. "You'll see, Star," she said softly, turning to the colt with a determined smile. "We're going to prove him, and everyone else, wrong." From that moment, Emma dedicated herself to Star's training with an intensity she had never known before. The road ahead was bound to be challenging, but deep down, Emma believed Star was destined to shine, even in a world that refused to see his potential. What Emma didn't realize was that her encounter with William Royce wasn't the last, and fate had something far bigger in store for her and her colt. The big day finally arrived. After months of grueling training, Emma managed to enter Star into his first local equestrian competition. It hadn't been easy. She had to convince the event organizers to allow a blind horse to compete. But her persistence and the undeniable evidence of Star's abilities eventually broke through their skepticism. The competition was held at a sprawling arena just outside of town, a venue known for hosting the best horses in the region. As Emma guided Star into the grounds, she could feel the weight of curious and doubtful stares falling on them. Is she really going to compete with a blind horse? One man muttered from the crowd. What a waste of time, scoffed another. This isn't a circus act, someone added with a mocking tone. Emma ignored the comments, focusing entirely on Star. She had come too far to let a few skeptics rattle her. Stroking Star's soft mane, she whispered, We've made it this far, Star. Nothing's going to stop us now. Her mother, who had come to support her, helped Emma get Star ready for the competition. Together they adjusted the simple yet elegant bridle Emma had painstakingly restored by hand. While other competitors boasted extravagant and expensive gear, Emma knew it wasn't the equipment that mattered. It was the bond she and Star shared. Before the competition began, Emma led Star to a quiet corner behind the arena, away from the commotion. She needed a moment to center both of them. Listen to my voice, Star, she said calmly. No matter what's happening out there, just focus on me. We've got this. Star's ears flicked toward her voice, a familiar and comforting sound. His trust in her filled Emma with renewed confidence. Soon, the announcement came for their category to begin. It was an obstacle course, one of the most demanding challenges, requiring horses to jump hurdles and respond precisely to their riders' cues. Emma guided Star to the starting line, mounting him with care. From her position, she could see William Royce sitting in one of the VIP seats, surrounded by wealthy breeders. Though they hadn't crossed paths in a long time, Emma doubted he would recognize her. To him, she had likely been just another face in the crowd. That's the man who abandoned you, Star, Emma thought, gently patting the colt's neck. But today isn't about him. It's about you. When their names were announced, the MC's tone was indifferent, as though he didn't expect much. But Emma didn't let it faze her. This is our moment, Star, she whispered with a grin. With a slight nudge, Star began to move confidently. The soft bells Emma had attached to his legs, providing him subtle guidance. The first obstacle was a low fence, a simple warm-up. Star cleared it with grace, as if to prove that his blindness was no barrier. For a moment, the crowd fell silent, clearly taken aback by the flawless execution. The next challenge was tougher. 2 fences in quick succession followed by a sharp turn. Emma maintained her composure, giving Star steady, gentle instructions. Just a bit more. Now jump. Star responded perfectly, leaping over both fences and making the tight turn without missing a beat. This time, the murmurs from the crowd weren't mocking. They were amazed. "Are you kidding me?" someone whispered. "That blind horse is doing better than most of the others," exclaimed another. Up in the stands, William, who had been casually chatting with a fellow breeder, looked up at the buzz around him, his gaze locked on the pair in the ring. Something about the colt seemed vaguely familiar, though he couldn't place it. Emma and Star pressed on, tackling each obstacle with courage and precision. Emma's cues were consistent and clear, and Star responded with unwavering trust. With every leap, the audience's skepticism melted away, replaced by awe at the partnership between the girl and her colt. As the final obstacle loomed, Emma glanced at Star with a quiet sense of pride. "This is it," she murmured. "Let's show them what we can do." As they progressed, the audience's polite applause grew into a thunderous ovation, transforming the initial atmosphere of skepticism into one of resounding admiration. By the time they crossed the finish line, Sarah leaned forward, wrapping her arms around Star, with tears streaming down her face. They had done it. The crowd erupted, their cheers echoing throughout the arena. Though Sarah couldn't hear the murmurs of astonishment and praise rippling through the spectators, she knew they had made an unforgettable impression. In the VIP section, William Royce observed the scene with narrowed eyes, his expression unreadable. Something about the horse stirred an unsettling familiarity. Determined to uncover more, he gestured for an event official. "This can't be," William muttered to himself, disbelief flickering in his voice. Could that horse really be? Unbeknownst to Sarah, she had just taken the first step in confronting the past and proving to the world and to William that greatness comes not from appearances, but from the heart and an indomitable will to overcome the impossible. The competition had concluded, and while the official results had yet to be announced, Sarah and her blind horse, Star, were the talk of the event. Spectators who had earlier dismissed them now crowded around to offer congratulations. "Incredible! I've never seen anything like it," exclaimed a woman, her voice brimming with excitement. "That's the bravest horse I've ever seen," added a young rider who had competed earlier. Sarah smiled modestly, stroking Star's mane as he contentedly nibbled on a slice of apple she had brought along. For Sarah, the real victory wasn't in the applause, but in having shown what they were capable of achieving together. Not everyone, however, shared in the celebration. From the stands, William watched intently, his interest sharpening with each passing moment. There was something in the horse's gait and the bond between Sarah and Star that gnawed at him. "That horse," he murmured to himself. "I know him." Unable to shake the thought, William beckoned a middle-aged competition official who approached with a clipboard in hand. "Who is that girl, and what do you know about her horse?" William demanded, his tone curt and authoritative. The official flipped through his notes before replying. "Her name is Sarah Reed. The horse is hers. A blind colt she rescued some months ago. Quite remarkable, isn't it?" "Rescued?" William's brow furrowed, his thoughts drifting back to the day he had ordered an unfit foal to be abandoned on his estate. The realization that this horse might be the very one he had cast aside sent a surge of disbelief and unease through him. Yet he quickly masked his emotions, his demeanor returning to its usual controlled state. Meanwhile, Sarah and her mother were busy packing up their equipment and preparing Star for the trip home. Just as they were finishing, a commanding figure stepped into their path. William Royce, his posture exuding authority, regarded them with piercing eyes. "So, you're the owner of that horse," he said, breaking the silence. Sarah looked up, startled but not intimidated. "That's right. Is there a problem?" Ignoring the defiance in her tone, William's gaze shifted to Star. He studied the horse carefully, its physique, its elegant stance, even the way its ears twitched at every sound. There was no mistaking it. "Where did you get this horse?" William asked, his attempt at casual inquiry betrayed by a slight tremor in his voice. Sarah hesitated, unsure how much to reveal to a man who clearly belonged to the elite world she wanted no part of. Finally, she replied, "I found him abandoned. He was in terrible shape, but I decided to take care of him." "Abandoned? Where?" William pressed, his voice now tinged with urgency. Sarah paused again but remembered her mother's advice to always tell the truth, even when it was difficult. "Near a dirt road, not far from a large estate. I think he belonged to someone there." Her gaze locked with William's as she added pointedly, "Maybe even yours." William's face tightened, his suspicions confirmed. There was no doubt now. This was the foal he had deemed worthless and left to die. But standing before him was no longer a weak, discarded animal. It was a magnificent creature that had captivated an entire arena. Regaining his composure, William forced a smile. "He's an exceptional horse," he said smoothly. "I'm impressed with what you've accomplished." Sarah didn't reply immediately, sensing there was more behind his words. "I'd like to make you an offer," William continued. "I'll buy the horse for a generous sum. Let's say $100,000. Sarah's eyes widened in shock. The amount was staggering, especially for someone from her modest background. Her mother, standing a few steps away, stepped forward, equally stunned. "That's an incredible offer," her mother murmured, but Sarah didn't break eye contact with William. "He's not for sale," Sarah said firmly, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. William raised an eyebrow, unaccustomed to being refused, especially by a young girl. "Think carefully. This isn't an opportunity you should dismiss lightly. With that money, you could help your family, fix your home, maybe even buy more horses. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance," he reasoned, his tone almost persuasive. Taking a deep breath, Sarah replied, "Star isn't just a horse, and he's definitely not a commodity. He's my friend. We've overcome challenges you can't even imagine. No matter how much you offer, he's not for sale." Her unwavering resolve left even her mother speechless. William stood silent for a moment, studying the girl who had managed to turn his discarded mistake into a champion. For the first time, he found himself at a loss for words. The girl's words hit William like a punch to the gut. Deep down, he knew she was right. Blaze wasn't just any horse. He was a testament to what love, commitment, and belief could achieve. Yet William's pride refused to let him admit it. "Fine," he said at last, his smile tight and insincere. "But if you ever change your mind, you know where to find me." As William walked away, Lucy turned to her mother, whose face was etched with disbelief. "Lucy, are you sure about what you just did?" her mother asked. Lucy nodded, her resolve unshaken. "Blaze is priceless, Mum. What we've been through together is worth more than all the money in the world." What Lucy didn't realize was that this confrontation marked the start of a much bigger battle. She would soon find herself defending Blaze not just from those who doubted him, but also proving to the world that true champions aren't born in mansions of privilege, but are forged in the crucible of perseverance. The buzz about Blaze's incredible performance at the competition spread quickly through the small town. While some remained skeptical, admiration for the horse and his young trainer grew by the day. Not everyone, however, was pleased. William Royce, nursing the sting of Lucy's refusal, began to view her rejection as a personal affront. For him, it was no longer just about money. It was about pride. He was determined not to let a girl from a modest family stand in his way. Blaze was no ordinary horse, and William was convinced his rightful place was in Royce stables, not under the care of someone who, in his eyes, couldn't fully appreciate or develop the animal's potential. Meanwhile, Lucy remained blissfully unaware of William's schemes, focusing solely on Blaze's training. Day after day, they worked together in the familiar fields where they had built their bond. But storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. One crisp morning, as Lucy and Blaze were running through their routine, the hum of an approaching luxury SUV broke the tranquil air. Lucy looked up to see William Royce's vehicle pull up along the dirt road. Her stomach sank as he stepped out, his lawyer in tow. "Lucy," William called, his voice sharp and commanding. "Since you've refused my offer, I've decided to take another route." Lucy's brow furrowed, her pulse quickening. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, keeping her tone steady despite the growing dread. William smirked, the arrogance in his expression unmistakable. "I want that horse, Lucy, and if you won't sell him willingly, I have the legal means to take him." Her heart pounded. Was he really threatening to take Blaze away? She barely had time to respond before William continued. "I can have Blaze legally declared an asset eligible for acquisition. Under proper training, he'd become the champion my stable deserves. I can guarantee his future would be secure in my hands, he said, his tone oozing with entitlement. Summoning all her courage, Lucy stepped protectively beside Blaze, placing herself as a shield between the horse and William. Blaze is not for sale, she said firmly, meeting his cold gaze. And I won't let you take him just so you can add him to your collection. William studied her for a moment, his expression calculating. He seemed almost amused by her defiance. Fine, he said eventually, his voice low but threatening. This won't be easy for you. But don't worry, Lucy, this isn't over. I know how to handle situations like this. With that, he turned and climbed back into his SUV, his lawyer following closely behind. Lucy watched the vehicle disappear down the road, her chest tight with anxiety. She knew his words weren't empty threats. William had the wealth and power to make good on them. That afternoon, Lucy and her mother visited the office of a local attorney known for his integrity and dedication to those in need. Mr. Harrison, an older man with a reputation for fairness, listened intently as Lucy recounted her story. Legally, he has no claim to Blaze, Mr. Harrison said after a thoughtful pause. But don't underestimate him. With his resources, he could push for a forced sale or find other ways to pressure you. Lucy nodded, her fear evident but her resolve unshaken. I don't want Blaze to become just another commodity. He belongs with me, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep him. Mr. Harrison studied her determined expression and nodded. Then we'll fight. But you need to be ready. It won't be an easy road. I understand, Lucy replied, her voice steady. I'm not giving up. Not now, not ever. With the unwavering support of Mr. James, Emily prepared herself for the fight ahead. Fear gnawed at her, but her determination, fueled by her love for Blaze, burned brighter. She understood that this wasn't just about the future of her horse. It was her chance to prove that even those deemed worthless could shine with the right care and effort. The battle with William Royce was only beginning, and Emily was ready to do whatever it took to protect what she had worked so hard to achieve. The pressure mounted as each day passed. William Royce's threats loomed larger and more tangible. His recent visit with his high-powered attorney wasn't just a scare tactic. It marked the start of a much more serious conflict. Soon, Emily began receiving letters from Royce's legal team, filled with legal jargon and demands that Blaze be sold to him. Every word seemed designed to overwhelm a 12-year-old girl with no resources to stand against a wealthy business magnate. But Emily was not about to back down. Every time a new letter arrived, she pored over it before handing it off to Mr. James, who helped her decipher the complex legal language. With his guidance, Emily began to understand the situation better. Although Royce had money and influence, he didn't have any rightful claim to Blaze, at least not yet. However, as Mr. James reminded her, the law could often be twisted, and Royce knew how to manipulate it to his advantage. The key issue here is ownership, Mr. James explained. If Royce can prove that Blaze is his property, he could take him back through a forced sale or legal settlement. But if we can demonstrate that the horse was abandoned and you rescued him, then Blaze is yours by law. Emily nodded, her resolve strengthening. She had saved Blaze. She had nursed him back to health, trained him, and transformed him from a frail, blind colt into a champion. How could anyone else possibly lay claim to him? As the court date approached, Emily's anxiety grew. The stress wasn't just affecting her, but her family as well, who feared the financial burden of such a legal battle. Despite the pressure, Emily never stopped training Blaze. Every morning at sunrise, she led him through their routine, perfecting his jumps, refining his movements, and, most importantly, strengthening their bond. She wasn't just preparing him for competitions. She was preparing him for the challenges ahead. One crisp morning, as Emily and Blaze practiced in the field, her mother approached with a worried expression. "Emily, the hearing is tomorrow. Are you ready for this?" Emily paused, resting her hand on Blaze's neck, finding comfort in his steady presence. "I don't know, Mum. It's all so overwhelming. But I know how much Blaze means to me. I can't let them take him away." Her mother wrapped her in a reassuring hug. "We're with you, no matter what happens. Just remember, you're stronger than you think." The day of the trial arrived, and Emily felt as though she were marching into battle. The courtroom buzzed with tension, filled with lawyers, witnesses, and curious onlookers, eager to see how a young girl and her horse would stand up against one of the most powerful men in the state. William Royce sat confidently at the plaintiff's table, his sharp suit and smug expression radiating arrogance. Beside him, a seasoned attorney known for winning impossible cases scanned Emily and her mother as if already preparing to dismantle them. The proceedings began with Royce's lawyer laying out their case. He argued that Blaze was William's property because he had been born on Royce's estate, with all expenses for his breeding and care paid by Royce. The horse had been discarded due to blindness, but according to their claim, it remained part of Royce's assets. Emily, guided by Mr. James, presented her side of the story. She described finding Blaze abandoned, injured, and on the brink of death. She recounted how she had spent months nursing him back to health and training him until he became the champion he was now. Blaze wasn't just legally hers, he was her partner and her best friend. Royce's legal team countered aggressively, attempting to undermine Emily's credibility. They painted her as a naive child with an overactive imagination, incapable of understanding the complexities of property law. The courtroom watched as the drama unfolded, their sympathy for Emily and admiration for her bravery growing with each word she spoke. Despite the relentless criticism, Lucy refused to be shaken. Each time someone dismissed her horse, Shine, as worthless, her resolve only grew stronger. "His worth isn't something you can put a price on," Lucy declared, locking eyes with William, whose expression mixed disdain and disbelief. "He's not just a horse, he's my friend, and I won't lose him." After what felt like an eternity, the judge finally delivered the verdict. The courtroom, tense and silent, hung on every word. The ownership of the horse, known as Shine, is hereby granted to Lucy Gomez. She has presented compelling evidence that she rescued the animal from neglect and has cared for him as her own. There is insufficient proof to support William Royce's claim of possession, and his argument lacks merit. The room erupted into murmurs as William's face hardened in fury, his jaw tightening visibly. Meanwhile, Lucy glanced at her mother, who was crying tears of joy. They had won. The judge emphasized that any attempt by William to appeal the ruling would lead to a prolonged and likely fruitless legal battle. Shine was safe, and Lucy had triumphed, not just in the courtroom, but against a system that often favored the powerful. As William stormed out of the courthouse, his anger radiating like heat, Lucy made her way to the stable where Shine had waited patiently through the ordeal. Her eyes brimmed with tears, not of fear or doubt, but of triumph. "We did it," she whispered to Shine, running her fingers through his mane. "We really did it." That victory wasn't just about ownership. It was a testament to what love and determination could achieve against the odds. The following morning, Lucy awoke early, as usual, just as the sun peeked over the horizon. But this time, everything felt different. The fear of losing Shine was behind her, and a future full of promise lay ahead. That day, the small town celebrated her win. Local reporters showed up at her house, eager to tell her story, and neighbors came by to congratulate her. Nobody could believe a young girl with so little had stood up to a man as influential as William Royce, and won. Yet Lucy didn't let the attention go to her head. For her, what mattered most was her bond with Shine and the life they were building together. In the weeks that followed, invitations began pouring in for larger equestrian competitions, some even from neighboring states. Shine's talent, combined with Lucy's tireless dedication, didn't go unnoticed. Competitions became a regular part of their lives, serving as a stage to show the world that discarded horses could shine brighter than anyone imagined. A year later, Lucy and Shine stood at the starting gate of one of the nation's most prestigious events. The air buzzed with anticipation as they prepared to face the top riders and horses in the country. The pressure was intense, but Lucy felt no fear. She had already accomplished the unthinkable. She had given a voice to the voiceless and hope to those who'd been written off. With Shine beside her, she knew no challenge was too great. When the winners were announced, the roar of applause filled the stadium as the names Lucy Gomez and Shine echoed over the loudspeakers. Tears streamed down Lucy's face as she embraced her horse, her heart swelling with pride. Shine wasn't just a champion, he embodied everything Lucy had fought for: resilience, love, and unwavering commitment. Later that evening, as Lucy and Shine prepared to leave the competition grounds, a familiar figure approached. William Royce, stripped of his former arrogance, stood before her. He had come alone, without lawyers or threats, carrying an air of defeat, and perhaps something more. "Lucy," he began, his voice softer than she'd ever heard, "I wanted to congratulate you. Your horse is remarkable, not just for what he accomplished today, but for what he represents." Lucy regarded him silently, weighing his words. She knew this wasn't an apology, nor an attempt to reclaim Shine. It felt like a quiet acknowledgement, a rare moment of humility from a man who rarely showed any. "Thank you," she replied, her tone calm and measured. In that moment, Lucy understood that she had not only secured Shine's future, but had also left an indelible mark on someone who had once underestimated her strength. With Shine by her side, she had rewritten the story, not just for herself, but for anyone who dared to defy the odds. "We made it here together, Luce and I. No one handed us anything. We earned every step," Lucia said firmly, her voice steady with pride. "I know," Salvador replied, his gaze shifting to Luce. There was a quiet admiration in his eyes. "What you've accomplished with him is nothing short of remarkable. You didn't just give him a chance. You showed the world the true meaning of resilience." Lucia didn't respond immediately, but the determination in her expression spoke volumes. "You didn't give him to me, Salvador. I gave him that chance. That's the greatest gift anyone could give." Salvador nodded slowly, as though a truth he had long resisted was finally sinking in. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Lucia and Luce standing in the arena under the warm glow of the setting sun. The following days unfolded with a quiet rhythm. Lucia and her mother continued their routine of training and competing, but their focus never wavered from what mattered most: Lucy's well-being. Life, while still challenging, had shifted toward a future filled with promise. Lucia realized that true triumph wasn't found in medals or trophies, but in the journey she had shared with Luce. She had come to understand that kindness, courage, and persistence could conquer even the most daunting barriers. Each passing day deepened the bond between Lucia and Luce. He wasn't just a champion on the track. He was a testament to the power of love and second chances. Soon, their story began to ripple across the nation. In competition after competition, the names Lucia and Luz echoed in arenas far and wide. Yet for Lucia, every cheer from the crowd was a reminder of the seemingly impossible feat they had achieved together. She had not only transformed her life, but also created a legacy of hope and perseverance with her blind colt, the one no one had wanted. In the end, Lucia and Luz proved to the world that when given a chance, even those deemed weakest could rise to become the greatest champions. With every leap, every race, and every determined step, they built a future brimming with infinite possibilities, not just for themselves, but for anyone willing to believe that anything is possible when fought for with heart. Thank you so much for sticking with us until the end of this incredible journey. Lucia and Luz's story is a powerful reminder that with resilience, love, and a little bit of heart, even the toughest challenges can turn into triumphs. If you felt inspired by their journey, I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's always amazing to hear from all around the world. If heartwarming tales like this one speak to you, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more touching stories. Until next time, keep believing in the power of second chances, because anything is possible if you fight with your heart. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.